Camilla, honey, you're being paranoid again. Ethan's voice cut through the morning air as he adjusted his life jacket, that same patronizing tone I remembered so well. Viana is just a friend, helping us plan the anniversary trip. I stood at the edge of Rocky River Lodge's dock, my hands trembling as I stared at the churning white water below. The same rapids that had killed me exactly 1 year ago. The same spot where my husband and his friend had watched me drown while pretending to throw me a rope that was deliberately too short. But this time, I knew the truth. The weather report says storms are coming, I said, backing away from the raft. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, steady when it should have been excited, suspicious when it should have been trusting. Viana emerged from the lodge, her perfect blonde hair catching the sunlight. She looked exactly as I remembered from my last moments. Beautiful, cold, and completely without remorse as she'd watched the rapids claim me. "Oh, come on, Camilla," she laughed, that tinkling sound that once seemed charming but now made my skin crawl. "It's just a little adventure. Besides, I've done this route 100 times. I'm practically a professional guide." Liar. I'd learned the truth after my death, watching from wherever souls go when their bodies are destroyed. Viana had never guided anyone. She'd researched just enough to seem credible, all to get me onto this river on this specific day when the storm would make rescue impossible. "Actually," I said, stepping further back, "I think I'll sit this one out. You two go ahead." The change in their expressions was instantaneous. Ethan's face flushed red, the way it always did when his plans were disrupted. Viana's smile faltered, her green eyes narrowing with something that looked like panic. "What do you mean, sit it out?" Ethan demanded. "This is our anniversary trip, Camilla. We've been planning this for months." "No, you've been planning my murder for months." But I couldn't say that. Not yet. I have a bad feeling about the water today." I wrapped my arms around myself, playing the part of the anxious wife. It wasn't entirely an act. Being back here, knowing what they'd done, made my stomach churn with a mixture of terror and rage. "A bad feeling?" Viana's voice was sharp now, her mask slipping. "Camilla, don't be ridiculous. The water conditions are perfect. I checked them myself this morning." I caught the micro-expression that flashed across her face, pure hatred quickly suppressed. In my first life, I'd been too trusting to notice. I'd believed her concern was genuine, her expertise real. I'd climbed into that raft thinking my husband's ex-girlfriend was trying to help us celebrate our marriage. What a fool I'd been. "The thing is," I said slowly, "I did some research last night about river conditions, safety protocols, that sort of thing." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots I'd taken. "Did you know that Rocky River has the highest fatality rate in the state, especially after storms?" Ethan snatched the phone from my hands. "Where did you get this?" "The internet, Ethan. It's amazing what you can learn when you actually look." I met his eyes steadily. "Why didn't you mention that part when you suggested this location?" "Because it's not relevant," Viana interjected, stepping closer. "Those statistics include idiots who go out without proper equipment or guides. We have everything we need." "Do we?" I gestured toward the raft. "Because that looks like a rental from the lodge. Not exactly professional-grade equipment." I was stalling, testing them, watching their carefully constructed plan unravel. In my first life, they'd rushed me into the water before I could think too hard about the risks. This time, I had the advantage of knowledge and the cold, crystalline clarity that comes from having died once already. "Camilla, what's gotten into you?" Ethan's voice carried that edge I knew so well, the one that meant I was supposed to back down, apologize, submit. "You've never been interested in outdoor activities before. Now, suddenly, you're an expert on river safety." "Maybe nearly dying teaches you to be more careful," I said quietly. They both went very still. Viana's face drained of colour. "What did you say?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "Nothing." I shrugged, turning away from the water. "Just that I'm not feeling adventurous today. You two should go ahead. I'll wait here and order us some lunch for when you get back." "Absolutely not." Viana grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging in. This was supposed to be a bonding experience, for all of us. Bonding. Right. The kind of bonding that happened when two people conspired to murder a third. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. "Let go of me, Viana." Something in my tone made her release her grip immediately. Good, I wasn't the same trusting fool who died in these waters. "Look," Ethan said, switching to his reasonable voice, the one he used when he wanted to manipulate me into compliance. "We've already paid for the raft rental. The weather's perfect right now. If we wait, we might miss our chance entirely." "Then don't wait," I said simply. "Go without me." "But," I said, "no, Ethan." The words came out harder than I intended, with an authority I'd never possessed in my first life. "I'm not getting in that raft today. End of discussion." Viana and Ethan exchanged a look. Quick, furtive, loaded with meaning. I recognized it now for what it was. The silent communication between conspirators whose plan had just hit a major snag. "Fine," Viana said finally, her voice tight with barely controlled frustration. "But we're not leaving you here alone. If you won't come rafting, we'll find something else to do." No, that wasn't how this was supposed to go. In my first life, they'd convinced me that the trip was safe, that Viana's presence was innocent. I trusted them both completely, right up until the moment I realised the rope they were throwing me was deliberately too short, that their rescue attempts were pure theatre. But I needed them to go into that water. I needed them to experience what they'd put me through. The storm I remembered from weather reports was coming, whether I was on the river or not. If they went out there alone, with their inadequate equipment and Viana's non-existent expertise. "Actually," I said, as if the idea had just occurred to me, "maybe you two should go. I mean, Viana's the expert, right? And you've been looking forward to this for so long, Ethan. I'd hate to ruin your fun just because I'm feeling anxious." "Are you sure?" Ethan's eagerness was poorly concealed. Of course he wanted me gone. Dead, specifically, but absent would do for starters. "Positive." I smiled at them both, the same trusting expression I'd worn in my first life. "Besides, someone should stay here to call for help if you're late getting back." The irony was delicious. In my original timeline, no one had been left behind to call for help when I went missing. Now they'd be the ones lost on the river, and I'd be the one deciding whether to send rescue or not. Well, if you're really sure. Viana was already moving toward the raft, unable to hide her eagerness to get away from me. My questions had rattled her more than she wanted to admit. "I'm sure." I settled onto a bench on the dock, pulling out my phone. "I'll be right here when you get back. Take all the time you need." They launched the raft 20 minutes later, Ethan paddling with the awkward strokes of a man who'd never been on white water, Viana directing him with the confidence of someone who'd watched too many YouTube videos. I waved cheerfully as they disappeared around the first bend, heading toward the section of rapids that had killed me. The first drops of rain began to fall 30 minutes after that. By the time I walked back to the lodge to wait, the storm was building on the horizon, dark clouds rolling in exactly as I remembered, bringing the kind of weather that turned routine river runs into death traps. I ordered a coffee and settled in by the window, watching the river swell with runoff. Soon, Ethan and Viana would realise they were in over their heads. Soon, they'd be fighting for their lives in the same churning waters that had claimed mine. This time, I wouldn't be the one drowning. This time, I would decide who lived and who died. The lodge's emergency radio crackled to life at 2:47 p.m. "This is River Rescue Unit 7, a static-filled voice announced. "We have reports of a raft in distress near Devil's Drop. 2 occupants spotted clinging to rocks, weather conditions deteriorating rapidly. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching the desk clerk scramble for the microphone. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see the river had transformed from its earlier lazy brown flow into a violent torrent of white foam and debris. Unit 7, this is Rocky River Lodge, the clerk responded. Can you identify the raft? We have guests out on the water. Negative on identification, orange and yellow rental raft. Appears to be from your location based on the markings. Attempting rescue now, but visibility is poor. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Camilla, help, stuck on rocks, can't get to shore. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Let them wonder why their loving wife wasn't rushing to their aid. The desk clerk was looking around frantically. Mum, he called to me, you mentioned your husband and friend went out on the river. Do you know what colour raft they took? Orange and yellow, I replied calmly. They left around 1:30. His face went pale. We need to contact their emergency contacts, get more rescue units out there. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out my phone. I should probably call my husband's office. Let them know he might be late for work tomorrow. I scrolled through my contacts with deliberate slowness. Oh, and Viana's husband. He should know where she is. The clerk stared at me. Mum, this is an emergency situation. They could be seriously injured. Oh, I'm sure they'll figure something out. I selected David Chen's number, Viana's husband, and hit call. They're both very resourceful. David answered on the second ring. Camilla, what's wrong? Hi, David. I just wanted to let you know that Viana is out on the river with Ethan. There's been a little accident, apparently, but I'm sure it's nothing serious. What kind of accident? Is she hurt? I could hear the genuine concern in his voice. Poor David. He had no idea his wife had been planning another woman's murder. The rescue teams are handling it. They're stuck on some rocks, from what I understand. Probably just waiting for the weather to clear. Stuck on rocks? Camilla, that's serious. Which river? I'll drive out there immediately. Rocky River, Devil's Drop area. I paused, letting that sink in. David was an experienced outdoorsman. He'd know exactly how dangerous that section could be in a storm. But honestly, David, there's something I think you should know about why Viana really wanted to come on this trip. The line went quiet, except for the sound of his breathing. What do you mean? His voice was carefully controlled now. Well, it's probably nothing, but I found some interesting things on Ethan's laptop last night. Email conversations between him and your wife dating back 6 months. Very detailed conversations. Another long pause. I see. And some research they'd done together about river conditions, insurance policies, accident statistics, almost like they were planning something specific. I kept my voice light, conversational, as if I were discussing the weather. I probably shouldn't have looked, but you know how it is when you get a bad feeling about something. David Chen's voice was deadly quiet when he spoke again. What exactly did these emails say, Camilla? Oh, the usual things. How much they missed each other, how they wished they could be together again, how I was standing in the way of their happiness. I watched another rescue boat launch through the window. Viana seemed particularly interested in accidents that looked, well, accidental. I could hear David breathing hard on the other end of the line. Are you telling me my wife and your husband planned to kill you? I'm not telling you anything specific, David. I'm just sharing what I observed. I pulled up the photos I'd taken of Ethan's laptop screen, screenshots of email conversations I'd found after my death, when my spirit had lingered long enough to discover the truth. Would you like me to forward you some of these emails? I think you might find them illuminating. Send them, now. I attached 6 of the most damning screenshots and hit send. Messages that laid out their entire plan. The anniversary trip, The choice of Rocky River's most dangerous section, even discussions about how long to wait before calling for help to ensure my body wouldn't be recovered. Jesus Christ, David whispered after a few minutes. They were going to murder you and make it look like an accident. Were? Past tense, I laughed softly. David, they still think they're going to murder me. They just haven't figured out yet that I'm not on that raft. The radio crackled again. Lodge, this is Unit 7. We've got eyes on the subjects. 2 people, 1 male, 1 female, both conscious but hypothermic. Male appears to have a leg injury. Female is, well, she's not cooperating with rescue efforts. What do you mean, not cooperating? The desk clerk asked. She keeps screaming about someone named Camilla, demanding to know where Camilla is, refusing to let us approach until we bring her Camilla. The male is trying to calm her down, but she's becoming increasingly agitated. I smiled. Viana was panicking, realizing their plan had gone horribly wrong. She probably thought I'd somehow escaped the raft, that I knew about their plot and had left them to die. She wasn't wrong. David, I said into the phone, I think you should come down here. To the lodge. Bring a lawyer if you have one. Why? Because when they pull your wife out of that river, she's going to be very confused and upset. She's going to say a lot of things that might sound crazy to people who don't know the context. Things about murder plots and insurance money and how everything went wrong. And you want me there to hear it. I want you there to corroborate it. I pulled out my tablet and opened the photo gallery. I also think you should see what else I found in Ethan's email, particularly the photos Viana sent him. What photos? Intimate ones. Very recent, based on the timestamp. Taken in what looks like your bedroom, actually. I scrolled through the images I'd recovered from Ethan's deleted files. There's also a video from last week that's quite explicit. Would you like me to forward that too? The sound David made was something between a growl and a sob. I'm driving there now, he said. Don't let them leave. Don't let anyone take her anywhere until I get there. Oh, I don't think that's going to be a problem. From the sound of things, they're going to need medical attention. Hypothermia, injuries, shock. They'll probably be at the local hospital for quite a while. Camilla? David's voice was strange now. How are you so calm about this? Your husband just tried to kill you. Did he? I looked out at the churning river, where rescue boats were still fighting the current. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Ethan and Viana went rafting together and got into trouble. I stayed safely on shore because I had a bad feeling about the weather. If they said anything else happened, well, hypothermia can cause hallucinations, can't it? David was quiet for a moment. You planned this. I prepared for it, I corrected. There's a difference. Another radio transmission. Unit 7 to lodge, we've got them both. Bringing them to shore now. Female subject is semi-conscious, male has a possible compound fracture. They're asking for someone named Camilla, claiming she was supposed to be with them. The desk clerk looked at me expectantly. Oh, I said, loud enough for the radio to pick up. Tell them Camilla is safe at the lodge. I decided not to go rafting after all. The weather looked dangerous. I hung up with David and walked to the window. Through the rain, I could see the rescue boats pulling 2 bedraggled figures from the water. Even at this distance, I could see Viana's blonde hair plastered to her head, Ethan's expensive outdoor gear torn and muddy. They had survived, for now. But survival was just the beginning of their punishment. The Mercy General Hospital emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos when I arrived at 6 p.m, playing the role of the concerned wife perfectly. David had beaten me there. His BMW was already in the parking lot, and I could see him through the glass doors, pacing like a caged predator. Mrs. Morrison? A nurse approached me at the reception desk. Your husband is stable. Compound fracture of the left leg, mild hypothermia, but he'll make a full recovery. Thank God, I breathed, clutching my purse with trembling hands. Can I see him? He's sedated right now, but you can sit with him. Room 314. She paused, looking uncomfortable. I should mention, he's been asking for you constantly. He seems confused about what happened out there. Confused how? He keeps insisting you were supposed to be on the raft with them. The other woman, Miss Torres, has been saying the same thing. But you weren't, obviously, since you're here. I blinked innocently. Oh, that's probably the shock talking. I was supposed to go, but I changed my mind at the last minute. Thank goodness I trusted my instincts. And the nurse nodded sympathetically and led me toward the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of David cornering a doctor near the nurse's station, his face flushed with barely controlled rage. Room 314 was dimly lit, filled with the steady beeping of monitors. Ethan lay propped against white pillows, his left leg immobilized in a complex brace. His eyes were closed, but they snapped open the moment I entered. Camilla? His voice was hoarse, desperate. Oh, thank God, you're alive. I thought, when you weren't on the raft, I thought something terrible had happened to you. Something terrible? I settled into the chair beside his bed, arranging my face into an expression of loving concern. Ethan, what are you talking about? I told you I didn't want to go rafting. No, that's not... He struggled to sit up, wincing as pain shot through his leg. You were supposed to come with us. That was the whole point. Viana said you changed your mind about staying behind. Viana said what? I let confusion creep into my voice. Ethan, I was at the lodge the entire time. I never changed my mind about anything. His face went pale, and I could see the exact moment he realized how thoroughly their plan had unraveled. But the emails we planned. What emails? I pulled out my phone with a trembling hand. Ethan, are you feeling all right? Should I call the nurse? Before he could answer, the door burst open. Viana stumbled in, supported by a male nurse, her hospital gown hanging loosely over her skeletal frame. Her blonde hair was still damp, her face gaunt with exhaustion and something that looked like terror. Camilla, she shrieked, lunging toward me with surprising strength. You lying bitch! You knew, and you let us. The nurse caught her before she could reach me. Mum, you need to return to your room. You're not supposed to be walking around. She planned this. Viana's voice was shrill, hysterical. She was supposed to die, not us. She was supposed to be on that raft. I stood up slowly, backing away with wide, frightened eyes. Viana, what are you saying? You're scaring me. Don't you dare pretend. I know you found the emails. I know you... What emails? I turned to Ethan, whose face had gone ashen. What is she talking about? Ma'am, the nurse said firmly, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down, or I'll need to sedate you. Sedate me? Viana laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You should be arresting her. She tried to kill us. Nobody tried to kill anybody, I said softly, my voice shaking with perfectly practiced fear. You invited me on a rafting trip. I decided not to go because the weather looked dangerous. You and Ethan went anyway, and you had an accident. That's all that happened. Viana's eyes were wild, darting between Ethan and me. Tell them, she screamed at my husband. Tell them about the plan, about the insurance money, about how we were going to make it look like an accident. The nurse was already reaching for his radio, calling for security. Ethan lay frozen in his bed, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Ethan, I whispered, putting a trembling hand to my throat. What is she talking about? What insurance money? I don't... He looked at Viana with something approaching horror. Viana, stop talking. You're confused. You hit your head. I didn't hit my head. She struggled against the nurse's grip. Camilla knows. She has the emails. She has the photos. At that moment, David appeared in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers. His face was carved from stone, and in his hand was a manila folder thick with printed pages. "Officers," he said quietly, "I believe my wife and this man have just confessed to conspiracy to commit murder." Viana went completely still, her face draining of what little colour it had left. "Mr. Chen," one of the officers said, "we'll need you to make a formal statement." "I have everything you need right here." David held up the folder. Email correspondence between my wife and Mr. Morrison, detailing their plan to kill Mrs. Morrison during a rafting trip, photographs of their affair, financial records showing research into Mrs. Morrison's life insurance policy. "That's impossible," Ethan croaked. "We deleted everything." The officer raised an eyebrow. "So you're confirming these communications existed?" Ethan's mouth snapped shut, but it was too late. Viana had gone limp in the nurse's arms, her face crumpling as she realised the magnitude of their situation. "Mrs. Morrison," the second officer addressed me, "are you aware of any threats against your life?" No. I sank back into the chair, covering my face with my hands. "I don't understand any of this. Ethan, how could you—" "Camilla, please." He reached for me with a desperate hand. "It's not what you think. We never actually planned to—" "So you admit there was a plan?" David's voice cut through the room like a blade. The officers exchanged glances. "Mr. Morrison, Miss Torres, you have the right to remain silent." As they began reading the Miranda rights, I stood up slowly, my legs shaking with what anyone watching would assume was shock and betrayal. "I need some air," I whispered. "This is all too much." "Of course, ma'am," the first officer said gently. "We'll need to speak with you later, but take all the time you need." I stumbled from the room, leaving behind the sound of Viana's hysterical sobs and Ethan's increasingly frantic protests. In the hallway, David caught up with me. "Camilla," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For not seeing what my wife really was." His jaw clenched. "The photos you sent me, some of them were taken in our bedroom while I was at work, while our kids were at school." I touched his arm gently. "David, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way." "No." He shook his head. "I'm glad you showed me. If they'd succeeded..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "But they didn't succeed," I said softly, "and now everyone knows the truth." Through the open door of room 314, we could hear Viana screaming as they prepared to transfer her to a secure wing. "She set us up. She knew everything. Check her phone, check her computer. She planned this." The officers' voices were calm, professional. "Ma'am, you're making this worse for yourself. You have the right to an attorney." David watched through the doorway as his wife was wheeled away in restraints, still screaming about conspiracy and setup. "They'll claim you somehow orchestrated this, won't they?" "Let them," I said, my voice steady now. "I have the perfect alibi." "Which is?" I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "I'm the victim, David. I'm the one they tried to kill. How could I possibly have orchestrated my own attempted murder?" He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see understanding dawn in his eyes. "You did know, didn't you?" "I suspected," I said carefully, "but suspecting and knowing are different things. And proving? That's something else entirely. The emails, the photos, how did you really get them?" "Ethan isn't very good with passwords," I replied. "He's been using our wedding date for everything since we got married. Not very creative for someone planning murder." David nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now?" I looked back toward the room where my husband was about to be arrested for conspiracy to commit my murder. "Now, They face the consequences of their choices, and I get to start over. With their attempted murder on your conscience. I met his eyes directly. David, they had every intention of killing me and making it look like an accident. The only difference is that this time, I wasn't the one who drowned. He was quiet for a moment. Justice, then. Justice, I agreed. Sometimes the universe just needs a little help finding the right target. 3 months later, Riverside County Courthouse. The prosecution calls Camilla Morrison to the stand. I walk toward the witness box in my black dress. Elegant, but not expensive, grieving, but not theatrical. The perfect image of a woman betrayed by those she trusted most. In the defendant's section, Ethan sat beside his court-appointed attorney, his left leg still bearing a slight limp from the accident. Viana was at a separate table, her once perfect hair now limp and unwashed, her designer clothes replaced by a cheap suit. They'd been denied bail after Viana's spectacular breakdown at the hospital had been recorded by security cameras. Attempted murder charges tend to make judges nervous about flight risk. Mrs. Morrison, the prosecutor began gently, can you tell the court about your relationship with the defendants? Ethan was my husband of 3 years. Viana is his ex-girlfriend from college. I kept my voice steady, controlled. I thought she was my friend. Did you have any indication that they were planning to harm you? None whatsoever. I touched the wedding ring I still wore. A nice touch, I thought. If anything, I was grateful that Ethan's ex was making an effort to include me. The anniversary trip was supposed to be a celebration of our marriage. Tell us about the day of the incident. I recounted the story I'd perfected over 3 months of police interviews and depositions. The sudden, bad feeling about the weather, my last-minute decision to stay behind, my shock at discovering their true intentions. Perfect victim narrative, flawlessly delivered. Mrs. Morrison, Ethan's lawyer interrupted during cross-examination, isn't it true that you had access to my client's email accounts? We shared devices sometimes, I admitted. Married couples often do. And you discovered these alleged emails between my client and Miss Torres weeks before the rafting trip? If I had, don't you think I would have confronted them or filed for divorce? Why would I stay married to someone plotting my murder? The lawyer had no answer for that. The logic was unassailable. What innocent person would knowingly walk into their own assassination? No further questions. Varna's attorney fared no better. Every question they asked only reinforced how implausible their defense was. That somehow the victim had orchestrated her own attempted murder while remaining completely innocent of any wrongdoing. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. 6 months later, Riverside Marina. I stood on the deck of my new yacht, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The insurance payout from Ethan's conviction had been substantial. Attempted murder voided our prenup beautifully. Add in the divorce settlement, the wrongful endangerment lawsuit against Viana, and the book deal for my survival story, and I was financially set for life. Mrs. Morrison, my new captain, Jake, appeared at my elbow. We're ready to cast off whenever you are. Thank you. I sipped my champagne, savouring the expensive bubbles. Let's head for the Caribbean. I hear the waters are particularly beautiful this time of year. As the yacht pulled away from the dock, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Murderous couple sentenced. Ex-lovers receive maximum sentences for conspiracy to commit murder. Husband gets 25 years, accomplice receives 20. I deleted the notification without reading the full article. Their fate no longer interested me. The marina grew smaller behind us, and I thought about the last time I'd seen them. Ethan had tried to speak to me as they led him away in shackles, his eyes desperate and pleading. Camilla, please, you have to know this isn't what we wanted. It got out of hand, but We never actually... I turned away without acknowledging him. What was the point? He was right, in a way. They'd never actually succeeded in killing me. But they tried, and in my book, attempted murder deserved the same punishment as the real thing. Viana had been less diplomatic in her final statement to the court. She's lying. She planned everything. She knew about the storm. She knew we'd get trapped. She wanted us to die. She's the real murderer here. The judge had ordered her removed from the courtroom when she started screaming about supernatural revenge and rebirth. Mental health evaluations had been ordered. The doctors would probably blame PTSD from the rafting incident. If only they knew. My phone rang, breaking through my memories. David's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, David." "Camilla." His voice was warm, familiar now after months of supporting each other through the trial. I saw the news about the sentencing. "How are you feeling?" "Relieved," I said honestly. "It's finally over." "Good. You deserve peace after everything they put you through." There was a pause. "I was wondering, now that the trial's finished, would you like to have dinner sometime? Somewhere that's not a courthouse cafeteria?" I smiled, watching dolphins play in the yacht's wake. "I'd like that, but I should mention I am currently sailing toward the Caribbean for an extended vacation." "How extended?" 6 months, maybe longer. I need to recalibrate, figure out who I am when I'm not someone's intended victim." "I understand." His voice was disappointed but supportive. "When you're ready to come back to land, give me a call." "I will," I promised, and meant it. David was a good man, loyal, honest, capable of genuine love, everything Ethan had pretended to be. After hanging up, I walked to the yacht's stern and pulled something from my purse, a small silver locket I'd worn in my first life, the one that had somehow travelled with me through death and rebirth. Inside was a photo of me and Ethan from our wedding day, both of us smiling at the camera with what I thought was genuine happiness. I held the locket over the churning water for a moment, then released it. It disappeared into the depths without a trace, taking the last remnant of my old life with it. "Mum?" Jake approached again. "We've got clear sailing ahead. ETA to Nassau is 14 hours. "Perfect." I turned away from the water, leaving the past behind me in its depths. Full speed ahead. As the yacht cut through the darkening waters, I thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought me here. In my first life, I died in cold, churning rapids, betrayed by the people I loved most. In this life, those same people had tried to kill me again, and ended up destroying themselves instead. Some might call it justice, others might call it revenge. I called it balance. The universe had given me a second chance, and I'd used it not just to save my own life, but to ensure that the people who'd stolen my first life paid the price for their greed and cruelty. Ethan and Viana were now exactly where they belonged, trapped in cells as surely as I'd once been trapped beneath the water. The only difference was that their prison had no possibility of rebirth. Above us, stars began to appear in the darkening sky, and I raised my champagne glass in a silent toast. To second chances, to justice served, to the sweet, perfect revenge that comes when the universe finally aligns in your favour, to a future where I would never again be anyone's victim. The yacht sailed on through the night, carrying me toward a new life built on the ruins of those who tried to destroy me. And for the first time since my rebirth, I felt completely, utterly free. Behind us, the lights of Riverside faded into darkness, taking with them the last traces of the woman I used to be, trusting, naive, vulnerable. Ahead lay nothing but open water and endless possibilities. This time, I was the one in control of my destiny. This time, I had won completely.